right, 15 minutes past 6 is the time. We welcome you back. This is the breakfast show here on Ghana Television. We are live on the internet at gbcghana.com. We have a number which is right on your screen where you can get that interactive with us. Send us a text message or WhatsApp message. Let's know exactly what you think. We're going to start first off with our first interview. We'll be talking about addiction, and there's a fair that's coming up to that effect. And I have in the studio members of the Wabharm Foundation, and I have Mohammed ADAMU. Mohammed is a consultant and co-occurring disorder specialist and the Chief Executive Officer of the Wabharm Foundation Ghana. And I have HELEN MEREDITH, who is an addiction specialist and a clinical director for LEILA Memorial Center at NIMA, my beloved NIMA. Good morning.
Good morning.
I hope you're well.
Thank you, yes.
Mohammed, I hope you're fine.
Very well, thank you. Thank you very much for having us.
Okay. So tell us about Wabharm. That's West Africa Behavioral Health Addiction Recovery Management Foundation Ghana. That's
yes, Wabharm. Wabharm is a not-for-profit organization that is set up to actually bring some clinical practice and structure into the addiction treatment in West Africa. Before Wabharm came in, there were players, and some of those players were doing it out of the joy of their hearts, like just to help humanity. Unfortunately, there weren't much structures around that. For example, compassion was around before Wabharm came, but the problem with that was that there wasn't structure. You know, just putting people together in one place and then having them pray and read the Bible. But things have evolved since then. Things have evolved. Wabharm is looking at proper clinical practice, guidance, skills development, and Wabharm is advocating for treatment and recognition of drug addicts as just plain human being, like you and I. And we shouldn't look at addicts or people with mental illness as second-class citizens, because that's what's happening at the moment when you look at how we structure the health care, the National Health Insurance Scheme. If you have an addiction, it doesn't cover you. If you have a mental illness, it does not cover you. Is that because you're a tier 2 Ghanaian? Are the rest of the people tier 1 Ghanaians? So that's some of the things we want to highlight and want to ask government to really look into it. Is it cheaper to provide treatment than to provide funding for prisons? Because addiction leads to criminality, and addiction leads to some social ills. So is it much cost effective? Wouldn't it be more cost effective to provide treatment and then we avoid people going into criminality? We avoid areas being taken over, as we're having more and more ghettos. In 2009, I only knew of about 4 or 5 ghettos in Accra where they sell drugs, hard drugs. But now ghettos have grown to about 20 in different areas. Well, we think it's not our business, but if we have houses, properties, land in these areas, it becomes our business. If our children go to school in this area, it becomes our business. If we want to set up a business in this area, it becomes our business, because we want to employ people who are fit, able to participate in the employment. And we want our kids to go to school safely and not have drugs, you know, shown up on their faces as they leave school or as they return to school. And at the same time, the cost of your property will start falling. If people start moving out, nobody wants to go and rent a house where there is the biggest ghetto in Accra. You don't want to live near the ghetto. You want to think of your family. So we forget the social issues and the health issues and the criminal justice issue. The cost of policing, you know, sending police to Kokrobite Beach or sending police to the ghettos to raid them. How cost effective is it? So the prison services, how cost effective is it to keep people in prison? Already we don't have the infrastructure or the know-how to manage addiction or mental illness in prison, but we're still sending people to prison instead of creating buffers that helps them escape criminality by providing treatment.
So how long have you been around now?
Since 2009.
2009.
We have been on and off since 2009, but fully we established the LEILA Memorial Center, which is an open access community center. Anybody can walk in. We provide free advice. We provide free screening, initial screening when somebody walks in to see if there is an addiction problem. And that means establishing if there is a use or a misuse, abuse, or dependency.
Okay.
They are all 4 different things.
How serious is addiction in this part of the country?
Well, unfortunately, it's, I would say, massively serious.
Massively serious.
Yes.
Massively serious.
Yes.
Not just serious, but massively
Not just serious. From what I'm seeing and what my colleagues in the field were saying, there's a consortium that is responding to this as well, which we are part of that consortium as well. It's massively serious.
Okay, and let me move to Helen here. He talked about being massively serious. Let's start from the basics that we can build up. What's an addiction? If we say someone is addicted to something, exactly what does it mean?
It's a physical addiction.
Okay.
So your brain is affected by addiction. So that it's hard really to, in a couple of words, explain it. But basically, you must have your drug of choice, okay? Because you're addicted. You may start off, try it once. You may get away with trying it twice. But very quickly you become addicted to a substance. For example, there's a huge problem here now with tramadol.
Yes.
Yeah, huge problem. And I need to tell you this, and this is scary, I think, particularly for parents out there. A young man I spoke to, a 16-year-old young man.
16-year-old?
Yeah, buys tramadol at school.
Younger.
Right, and that...
At school?
They start this when they're 11, you know.
Wow, okay.
16 is getting on a bit, really. He buys tramadol at school. It costs him 1 CD.
1 CD?
1 CD, which he pays for it out of his lunch money. Okay, and he's buying it from another friend at school. This is very, very worrying practice.
And this happening in Accra here?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
And the thing is, it's not the tramadol that people are prescribed by their GPs. Because I think you can only get to about 125 milligrams, 52.
I think the problem with the tramadol issue is that we're focusing, although the pharmacy has their problems about not adhering to seeing prescription before they sell prescribed drugs, but not all pharmacies are doing that. However, the big problem is the strength of tramadol that we find in the ghettos that people abuse are not the ones that comes through the legal routes. Because the ones that come to have maximum strength of 100. It's either 50 or 100. Now, we're getting 225. Like yesterday, we got some from the ghetto easily. And that's why we're saying massively. Just yesterday, because we're coming on this program, we got some in the ghetto for 2 CDs.
2 CDs?
Yes.
Tramadol, 2 Ghana CDs?
Yes. For a tablet.
225 milligrams.
And the milligram is 225?
225. And
for 2 Ghana CDs?
Yes. You can't get it in the pharmacy.
But you can't get...
No.
Wow.
You will never, it's not, it's in through dodgy routes. And then there's something called rufinol. It's called Rufi. Mainly is a sex date rape, a sex date drug. They use it, put in a female's medication to stimulate them, and then people have sex with them. But unfortunately, we're getting this in Accra. I'm shocked. I mean, I spent 25 years working in the NHS in the United Kingdom. In 2009, when I came here, nobody will know rufinol. Nobody knew tramadol. Now, rufinol is like, ecstasy, MDMA, it's in the market.
Ecstasy is in the
Yes,
market.
we're having problem with that with university students. So, it's a problem. So the strength of these things, how it gets to the black market, is not through the legal means. Our borders are porous. And again, if we don't stop providing the market for these things by helping the addicts, then Ghana will be seen as a soft zone. Oh, we have plenty addicts there. It's a business. It's where people demand for your goods that you send them to. So we have drugs coming in from different sides of the border, different kind of drugs illicitly obtained, and most of these drugs you won't even get them in the pharmacy, especially the kind of strength that we are seeing.
All right.
So if we go back to addiction, the idea of LEILA Memorial Clinic, which we're very proud of as the first West African walk-in clinic opened. People come there and we would assess them, initial assessment, which is free, etc. And then if we decide that they need a full assessment, we would then do it. That's when you can find out whether the person is addicted. Very many things come into play when you're talking to somebody and trying to find out if they're addicted. Whether they would have withdrawals if they didn't have the medication or the drug, how often they have it per day, etc., what it's leading to, as Mohammed pointed out, criminality, etc. Well, on that field, I guess I'm a bit passionate about that, okay, because, you know, the fact is that to put someone in prison, for example, for being found with a spliff on them, is of no benefit to anyone putting them in prison, no. Because you don't learn, you don't get any support in prison, you don't get any treatment in prison, and you come out of prison. I think it's 5 years, is it, for a spliff? You come out of prison, and you go back to exactly the same thing,
or worse.
Or worse,
because you learn something in prison.
You've certainly learned to be a really good criminal in prison.
In prison.
Yeah, and you've also. I mean, I can't necessarily speak for your prisons here, but certainly in Britain, all prisons have drugs in them.
All prisons got drugs in prison.
Yeah,
Anywhere in the world. Anywhere in the world.
But
That's even in Britain.
Even in Britain, yeah.
Even in Britain.
yes.
So you can imagine in Ghana.
Yes.
Yes. So, so they even might change their drug use. They may change from cannabis to heroin whilst they're in prison.
Yeah.
It's very possible. But certainly when they come out, they haven't changed their behaviour in any way. They haven't had any kind of psychological treatment, and they will definitely go back to their drug of choice. Probably at a higher level. Certainly, if you're an alcohol user, you come out and drink a lot more. Alcohol, you have a big problem with here. Huge problem, and it's played down like it is all over the world because it's socially acceptable. Right. But I mean, I've talked to young people, early 20s I'm talking about, who spend every night in a bar here and have 3 or 4 or 5 bottles of beer and think that's quite acceptable.
So at your work at LEILA, which people do you come in contact with a lot? I mean, those on cannabis or tramadol, alcohol, drunkards and all that?
Well, it's definitely all of them.
All of them.
Oh
All of
yes,
them.
definitely all of those drugs. There isn't one. I can't think of not having seen somebody with one problem or often two.
And when you talk to them, what reasons do they give for that addiction?
That's the thing, John. There's always a reason
Yes.
why someone started drugs. Sometimes it's hard to sort of pull it out of them. Okay, and once they come to us, they're fairly far into their addiction. And then you need to know what's sustaining it. What could start it? It could be many things. It could be going all the way back to childhood. It could be sexual abuse, physical abuse, losing parents when they're young. As they get older, maybe they're not achieving as their parents anticipate they'll achieve. Broken relationships, broken marriages. Their mental health problems are a huge thing. So they self-medicate if they're depressed or have any anxiety or stress or any mental health problems. So they self-medicate by using alcohol or drugs, you see. So when they come to us, it's a matter of finding out what's sustaining that use. We know what started it, what's sustaining it. And to be honest, most of the time it has become out of their hands. But in order to sustain that use, they often have to firstly cause their family and themselves huge amounts of stress, and so the families get so scared. It's like ripples in the pond. You drop a stone in, it ripples out.
Let me quickly find out from Mohammed, then we'll come to the fair. There was this article I read of a lady in this country, and she had issues. She thought it was spiritual. It was linked to a religious belief or so. So she was going for prayer meetings. She was fasting, doing all that, but it was not going. Until someone told her to go and see a psychiatrist. Then she realized that the issue she had was not a spiritual issue, but she had a mental problem. We have a lot of people in our society like that. And earlier you were talking about going to churches and praying and all that. How is that really affecting the whole addiction issue and getting people to recover?
I can't blame the people. I've seen so many families, with broken heart, and I've seen mothers, fathers really struggle to get treatment, proper treatment for their words. But to answer your question directly, it's not the church's problem. I can't blame the churches. I can't blame the family.
Okay.
But the problem is not again to blame the system, but the system is lacking.
Okay.
You see, we cannot continue to criticize the churches or the mosque for providing prayer and spiritual guidance. It's appropriate because these things are protective factors.
Yes.
If you fast, if you pray, you will not have the time to go and engage in drug use activities.
Okay.
Yes. And if we, as practitioners, maybe mental health practitioners, addiction practitioners, let's actually reach out to these churches. Let's work with them. The same model that the healthcare professionals adapted with the TBAs, the traditional birth attendants, when we are having high mortality rate with women giving. We did not push the traditional birth attendants away. The Ministry of Health created a forum. They engaged them. They taught them what they don't know, and they learned from them. You see, we can work with pastors, we can work with imams, just like we have done. We brought in a program called Milati Islamia, because we found out that religion is a factor as well, like a barrier to treatment.
It's a lot of factor in this country.
Oh yes,
it plays
like
a critical role.
Serious issue, because Muslims, we found out, would not necessarily go into drug treatment, even residential rehabilitation, because of their religion. One, you're not supposed to use psychoactive substances. Now you are using psychoactive substances. It's a shame to your community. Then most of the rehabs or the treatment centers are 12-step facilitated. So that means they look at them as a Christian establishment. So if they go there, they will convert them to Christianity. But we need to educate these people. So we introduced something called Milati Islamia. It's exact same thing as the Church Step Fellowship. But the only difference is that this is based on the Quran. And we are getting some good response from that. Now we have to engage with the churches. We have to engage with the, is it spiritual camps? These camps that they take people, prayer camps. We need to engage with them. If we don't engage with them...
And engagement with them will be based on what?
Engage on raising their awareness, not criticizing them, understanding where they're coming from a spiritual perspective, which we don't know, we can't contest. Nobody has seen the spiritual perspective. But if it works for them, fine. But let them not be a barrier to treatment. Let them understand that, yes, we can continue our prayers and our spirituality, but this same person needs professional help. Just like the head pastor is diagnosed, God forbid, with cancer. Yes, we'll continue to pray for the head pastor, but the head pastor might have the money to go to Britain and get treatment for the cancer, and he will leave.
And be fine,
And be fine. Exactly the same thing for a drug addict or for someone with a mental illness. But if we don't raise those awareness, we can't blame them. We need to reach out and let them know.
Okay. All right.
So we're non-faith based.
Yes.
So we'll take, we embrace all religions, and we see that there is a place for religion in recovery. It's part of it, just part of it.
There's a place for religion in recovery.
Oh yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
Yes.
All right, and that's the standard practice, right?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Yes.
So there's a fair coming up.
There is indeed. We're holding the fair in Nima. I'll tell you where in a second.
My beloved Nima.
Yes, you love Nima.
I love Nima. Yeah.
Okay, I do too.
I stay out of Crown Newtown, so we are just neighbors.
All right.
Yeah, we're just neighbors. Yeah.
September is the Recovery Month, International Recovery Month, and to celebrate that, we're holding a fair. The title of the fair is Healthy Youth, Prosperous Ghana.
Okay.
So predominantly we'll be focusing on the youth, which is, the thing is, today's youth are tomorrow's presidents, doctors, dentists, nurses, businessmen, television presenters.
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes.
So they need to be healthy. And we're talking about physical and mental health. The trouble is that our young people will come upon many obstacles as they reach adulthood.
Yes.
And one of those will be temptation into drugs and alcohol, for one thing. And if you want to make a decision about your future, then you need to know what you're up against. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the idea of the fair is to show them and their families, because it's a holistic approach. So it's a well-being of the whole family, to show families what is available for them out there, what services are available for one thing, who can help them, where they could get help if they needed it, from social services, the AIDS Commission, people like that, various other organisations will be attending, and so in essence it'll help. The idea is to help children in families have a healthy and logical look at what is out there and what may happen to them.
Okay. And these are days fair?
Pardon?
Is it one day?
Yeah, this is on Saturday, which is 22nd. It's in the Nima Cluster School.
Okay.
In Nima, obviously,
yeah.
from 9 a.m. Everyone is welcome. We're very pleased to see everybody. Hopefully there's something that will catch everybody's eye there. And we're looking forward to it as a celebration of Recovery Month.
Okay, all right. You were earlier telling me a story about Kofi Annan and his role in this whole addiction issue.
Yes, unfortunately, we lost the biggest hero when it comes to addiction. I know Mr. Annan is known for championing a lot of cause, apart from being the former UN Secretary General. He had this red potato projects to help people with some certain deficiency.
Yeah.
But one remarkable thing that Mr. Annan did for Africa and Ghana in particular is that prior to 2009, drug issue, we only see West Africa as a transit place for drugs. Yeah, people from South America go to Asia, buy their heroin, bring it to the west coast of Africa, repackage it, change passport, and then take it to Europe or North America, and then vice versa. So we think cocaine and heroin just pass through here. But after we had a failed state, almost a failed state in Guinea-Bissau, 2009. The rest of the world woke up. The United States woke up. They intervened in that Guinea-Bissau crisis where the president and the chief of naval staff were involved in drug dealing. But just after that, Mr. Annan took the initiative to put together high-powered people like General Obasanjo, former president of Nigeria, and some other dignitaries from across West Africa to form the West Africa Community on Drug. Now, this created a lot of momentum. They went through all West African states, spoke to the president, and there is a famous quote that he's known for when he was doing this campaign, that yes, drugs truly do harm people, but bad policy harms more than the drug itself. And that's where we mentioned the prison issue, where we should spend the money on. So we're actually mourning Mr. Annan, and we're hoping that this year and every year the addiction professionals will be looking at honoring him on an annual basis, because West Africa has missed and we can't even see who is going to fit in that shoe.
Okay, sorry. We'll have to leave it here. We'll try again and create another opportunity. This time look at addiction in a broader perspective and see how best we can solve the issue. And as you described it being massively serious, it's a bit worrying, especially for younger ones. And the whole tramadol issue, for a moment I thought that it was going down, but interestingly it's not. If you can get tramadol for 1 Ghana cedis, get tramadol for 2 Ghana cedis, and not just about a 50 milligram or 100, but 250 milligrams, that speaks a lot of volume.
Unfortunately, it can't go down because we have a knee-jerk reaction to things. When tramadol, these pharmacies, everybody, but they let it go. It needs consistency.
All right, okay, so we'll leave it here. Thank you very much for your time, and we wish you all the best. The fair is on Saturday at the Nima Cluster of Schools, start at 9 in the morning. Okay, thank you very much, and let's keep doing the good things for this wonderful country of ours.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We'll quickly bring you up a feature which is going to talk about life within the Senior Correctional Center, and it's just, that's also a place where we have a lot of addicts too. You're going to understand how life is there for them. Stay with us, we'll be right back.
The Senior Correctional Center, otherwise called the Ghana Bostab Institute, was established on 19th May 1947 as a juvenile institution. In 2003, the Juvenile Justice Act, Act 253, changed the name from Bostab Institute to its present name, which is Senior Correctional Center. This act gives it wider operational scope functions. The institute has a motto, I shall rise again. Initially, it was under the Department of Social Welfare until 1958, when the Ghana Prison Service took over its administration. Although it is under the Ghana Prison Service, its philosophy is different from adult prisons.
Every institution has its rules and regulations, and this institution is actually under the prison service, so the prison service regulations are used as code of conduct. They don't come even with what they're called warrants. They come with detention warrants. So it's just a detention center to make sure that when they are adults, they don't go into crime.
In its mission statement, the center aims at attaining 8 3 R's, namely reform, rehabilitation, and reintegration of inmates into the society.
It's a home that wants to give vision. It's a home that wants to give life. It's a home that wants to give hope to the young ones, you know, the young and careless in wasted life of crime. Therefore, we are, as a service, doing our best to ensure that these young ones come out as changed human beings.
The center actually was set up to redeem and save the lives of young offenders from wasteful life of crime, and also to prevent them from graduating from childhood criminals and crime to adult crime.
Currently, they have 110 inmates, and the maximum capacity of the center is 120. But the figure fluctuates each year. High figures are recorded during festive seasons.
We manage only the boys. The girls one is under the social welfare still. Young offenders between the ages of 13 and 21 years. Actually, when they come with their detention warrants, it ranges from from 1 year to 3 years, and sometimes months, so 3 months to 3 years maximum. Maximum sentence is 3 years.
3 units operate under the institute, which are the educational, technical, and counseling units. To accomplish broader goals to which the center was established, juvenile inmates are taught religion to give them spiritual values. The different subjects are handled by experienced counselors, psychologists, and